The shoe stores of Franklin. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, we're all familiar with a couple of certain shoe stores, so you're thinking, well, we're going to try to fill up about 35, 40 minutes of a talk. I mean, how are we going to stretch that out? I'm going to talk very slow. No. Anyway, no, there are a lot of shoe stores in Franklin. You'll really be surprised. There's quite a few of them.
I have that sign, Phil.
I know, yeah, Danny's got that sign, yeah. Yeah, that sign went over to East Central Street too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That sign went to
Yeah.
West Central,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. East Central, right.
East Central.
And who knows who that police officer is?
Roberto,
Freddie Lamberto, yeah. Yeah.
recognize him from here.
Yeah. And as always, my sources of information, the Franklin Register, that was the Franklin's first newspaper. The Sentinel, the weekly newspaper we had. Stanley Chilson's collection of pictures and films, a lot of these pictures are taken from there. Sanborn maps, probably not too many of them today, but there's other maps and drawings of Franklin that you'll see in a minute that were really helpful in, helping me to determine where certain stores were and everything. And then personal pictures and postcards. And then, of course, I always like to recognize the museum. It's a great place to go. Now, in doing all my research, generally I try to go back as far back as I can. And the Franklin Register published in 1875, so that's the first newspaper that I was really able to get information. And there was a guy named James A. Guild, had a place on Depot Street. So that was probably the oldest place that I was able to find. So we'll start with him. James Guild, he manufactured boots. Back in those days, there really weren't many shoe stores. There were shoe repair stores. They did a lot more repairing. And they probably actually constructed boots, made boots for you, custom, right then and there. But that place was on Depot Street. And if you're familiar with where the train stop was and the 140 Club, down the end of Depot Street, that's that building right there. That's before they added on to the back of it. And then the building number 59, that's the Cotton Block. Eventually that became the Oddfellows Hall that we remember. They actually put a facade on the front of that building to make it look different, but it was like a wooden building. And then, let's see, now this is from February of 1873. Now James Freeman, he had an advertisement in April of 1874. Now that advertisement looks exactly the same as the one we just saw, right? Except for the name change. So it's got to be the same business. Why it changed names, I don't know. That maybe they changed, maybe he bought the place, whatever. But it's the exact same ad, right down to October 12th, 1872, and everything. So, but there it is. Now this is a map from 1876. And if you look carefully, you can see J.M. Freeman, and it's pointing to that building. They tried to squeeze in a lot of these words and everything as best as they could. Like D.C. Cotton, we talked about the Cotton Block, that was next door to it, Depot Street, and so on. So they really tried to cram in a whole bunch of information into that little map. And that was Dean property, by the way, all that. This was before the Ray Block was built, and before Dean Avenue extended to Main Street from Ray Street. It was all open land, and it was owned by Dean. Irwin's Shoe Store. That was on Main Street near the bridge. Now, exactly where, I'm not quite sure. I couldn't figure it out, but it says Main Street near the bridge. All right. So now, a happy pair brought these shoes in to show how well they had worn. 2 years of hard wear had not broken them. So, the new style. So apparently they made them there, I guess, or they certainly repaired them. Yeah, right near the bridge. Yeah. Drop in and see. Yeah. How's this for a name? Smith W. Thayer. Yeah. Now, he was in January of 1875. Smith Thayer established his custom boot and shoe business on Main Street. It was next to the Franklin Register office. Now, we talked about the Franklin Register being the first newspaper. That was in a building right near the bridge, and it's kind of where, well, it's in the Flax Block. We're going to see in a minute. You'll see a better picture of it. But that's where Smith Thayer had his place. And the clipping on the left, it showed that Mr. Thayer engaged a first-class workman, which enabled him to take orders for any style of boot or shoe. So apparently they'd make the shoes right there. And then the notice on the right is from 1875, September, and it shows that he secured the services of Thomas Underwood of New London, Connecticut, who also made boots and shoes. So he was a boot manufacturer, and obviously he repaired them too. So, yeah. And there's the store. Now you can see the Metcalf block is there today. This is the building that was torn down to build the flax block. But you can see the horse trough to give you an idea. So we're looking down Main Street. But anyway, that's where the store was. Now, that was where Smith Thayer operated his store. Now, in March of 1906, a guy named Ethan Allen Moore took over the Thayer store. And Mr. Thayer agreed to stay on for a short time, too. And later that year, Smith Thayer moved his shoe business over to the Sentinel building underneath the Sentinel building on Depot Street. That would be where the trading post was, and maybe a lot of you remember at the end of Depot Street on the right, there's a building there. It was down there, and that's where he moved there. And then, shortly after that, he moved over to Union Street, and he moved to where the Benjamin Franklin Savings Bank used to be. Now, if you're familiar with the Davis Thayer Elementary School, before that was the Davis Thayer Homestead, and that turned into the Franklin Hotel. But that building is where Benjamin Franklin Savings Bank first started back in 1871, I think it was. When they moved to Dean Avenue, and he apparently moved into that spot.
Where Davis Thayer School is?
Yep.
That's where the Ben Franklin started?
Yeah, it was if you ever see pictures of the old Davis Thayer, the homestead, and it turned into Franklin Hotel. On the Union Street side of the building, is where that's the bank, the Benjamin Franklin Bank started. Yeah. Yep. Then they moved to Dean Avenue, where the Country Kitchen was. Then they moved to Main Street when they built the building on Main Street. Ethan Allen Moore was his name, but he called it Ethan Allen Shoe Store. Now, he was an anatomical shoemaker. So very custom. Now, this advertisement appeared in the 1903 Franklin Business Directory. And he was an anatomical shoemaker. He worked at the Morse Opera House shoe store at that time. And that was, the Morse Opera House was on East Central Street. In fact, the building is still there today, but you'll see in a few minutes where that was. And then this advertisement from September of 1903, and it shows the Ethan Allen Moore shoe store doing business at 4 Main Street. That's when he moved over to the store we just saw. And we will sell these in single pairs at 35 cents without guarantee. At $2 a box, 6 pairs in a box, we give a guarantee for 6 months. Oh, okay. Interesting. And there it is. That's Ethan Allen Moore's shoe store. I'm not sure which one of them is Ethan Allen Moore, but and maybe one of them is Mr. Doherty. I don't know. But in 1905, he took over the shoe store of Smith Thayer. We talked about that. Because of Smith Thayer's ill health. See, all leather shoes at the Ethan Allen shoe store. Yeah. Fine repairing a specialty. Yeah. And then here's an ad that appeared in the 1909 Franklin Business Directory. And during that time, his business had increased to the point that he took over the room over the Searle Barber Shop, which was next door. Sometimes if we see another picture of that area, you'll see the two the poles with the ribbon that are typical of barber shops. So upstairs in that building is where he went. He moved into with a repair shop. And then in March of 1920, Mr. Moore's health really began to fail. So he sold his business to Robert Doherty, one of his employees. And so there's that. But solid leather. We have a modern equipped repair department. So we defy competition. Yep. Then Doherty took over. There's a picture of Robert Doherty taking over the same store. Yep. Trying to understand what this is right here. I'm not sure what that is. It might have been an advertisement or something. Maybe something was happening at the Opera House. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Circle,
It's a nice picture.
circle. Yeah,
Nice one.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep. Now, in 1925, he was told he had to get out of the building. They're going to tear it down, and they're going to build a new flax block, which this is the building that's there today. So he was forced to vacate, and he's already my already low prices still further slashed. So I must vacate by March 1st, 1925, for this. And so shoes, rubbers, overshoes, boots will be cut so low you can buy them in almost your own figure. Wow. Even the early spring stock that recently arrived is included in the sale. Wow. So what he did, he moved down to 58 Main Street next to where Connie's drugstore used to be, in that building. And there's an ad on the left. That's when he was announcing, oh no, that's in the new location, the temporary location at 58 Main Street. That was actually, that building was torn down, and that's where Benjamin Franklin Savings Bank was built. So larger store, bigger stock. So there's that. And then the one on the right is when August of 1925, and the flax block was done. They moved back to the old location in the new store. Well, back at my old location again. It was moving day yesterday for me, and I hope it's the last. My shoe store is now located permanently on the new flax block, for I have taken a long lease in the same location where I did business before I had to move when the old block was raised. Yep. So, yep, 4 Main Street, yep. And then in 1932, in December, he decided to sell his business to Barney Kaplan. Barney Kaplan, yep. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere appreciation for the sustained patronage, and I trust that the same loyalty will be continued to Mr. Barnett Kaplan and his manager, Charles Scott. We're going to see where Charles Scott had his own shoe store in Franklin, too. Yep. Kaplan Shoe Store. There it is. Main Street during the 1950s. That is the flax block, and that's where he was. Yep. And there he is. 1963, he decided to close the business and retire. And so that's him with his wife. Yep. Yep. After 35 years of doing business on Main Street, so this is 1963. Yep. Oh, Fico Shoe Store, shoe repairing shop. Now, here's something that's interesting. There was in fact, I was talking to Victor Pizzini yesterday, and I said, do you remember a guy named Sam's Shoe Repairing Shop on Main Street? Oh, yeah, yeah. It was in there. Franklin Shoe Repairing. So according to the article that appeared in the March 21st, 1946 Franklin Sentinel, it said that Dominic and Henry Fico had purchased Sam's Shoe Repairing Shop in the Metcalf block on Main Street. At the time that this picture was taken, it was known as Franklin Shoe Repairing Shop. Because this is around 1942. This is the snowstorm in 1942. So it was still Franklin Shoe Repair at the time, but a guy named Sam owned it. So that's where Fico Shoe Store started, right there. Yeah. And then in August of 1947, this article appeared. It said the shoe repairing shop had moved from Metcalf Block to the former Martin Shoe Store on Main Street. Yeah, everybody remembers Martin's department store on the bridge. And then Fico's shoe repairing shop was there. This is 1949 during Franklin Field Days, or whatever they call them. Yeah. So Fico's moved to there. Yeah. Yeah, Newberry's is in that, well, in that building, right? Yeah, exactly. This is right next to the bridge. I can remember driving down that alley on my bicycle. That little alley right there.
Big trucks would come in there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Fill up, stop, and shop.
Yeah, yeah.
What year was that?
This one's 1949. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. What, Phil? Oh, Grant's was next to, right next to Newberry's. Yeah, Grant's and Newberry's, yeah. Yeah. Mhm. And then they moved to Depot Street. In January of 1952, Fico Shoe Store, a shoe repairing shop, moved to Depot Street as shown in the picture. Yep.
Wingding sign, redid that sign. You still see it on it.
Wingding,
They were out of Milford, I believe.
Wingding
My father,
sign.
He had it taken down from this store.
yeah.
Before it went over East Central Street, he had it refurbished.
Oh, nice.
Wingding sign.
Wingding sign. Wow, and you still have the sign.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I got to come over and see that. That's a piece of history, boy. Whew. Wow. Now, we talk about the policeman, that's Freddie Lamberto, and the guy is Eddie Yadicinia. They used to work for Duke Yadicinia, and that's Eddie, his son.
Now, that was a bubbler right there.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, that was a relief in the hot summer day, huh? Yep. Oh, yep. And then Sully the barber was down there. Yep. That's right. And Taxi was down there too, I believe.
Right to the right, as you go down through the door.
Yep. Of course, Fico Shoe Store was to the left. Disty DeCecco had his tailor shop on the right. Yep. And then they moved to East Central Street. This is a 1978 parade. And from what I missed that parade, but they said it was hot that day. Oh my God.
See, that roof didn't cave in.
Yep. You know, it's funny, that building, we talked about this in one of the previous talks, that building was a gas house. And it was moved there by Aaron Hotwell Morse. It was a gas house. I never could figure out why they used that as a gas house.
There was a big freezer in there when my father got in.
That's right.
Me and Archie Howell removed it.
Yep. Because that was a meat market when Mr. Morse turned that into a meat market for David Corson. It became Corson's Meat Market. So it makes sense why there would be a big... Oh, well, then it became Quinn's Grocery, then Jimmy O'Connell. So it was a grocery store, so that's another reason why there would be a freezer
And that
there.
was when Socket Carl.
And when Socket Carl came there, Dutchy Gilbert, yeah.
Freddie Saltman owned that building.
Oh, did he own that one?
Freddie,
Yeah.
My father's landlord.
Okay, yeah. Because he owned the whole block almost.
Good guy.
Oh, yeah, Freddie was great, yeah. Yep. Tip Top Shoe Hospital. Probably not too many people remember the Tip Top Shoe Hospital, but you're gonna love this. That was right on the corner of Cottage Street and East Central Street. We had a guy named Sal Di Lorenzo, had a Sal the barber shop, and to the right was Tip Top Shoe Hospital. Ernest Bonifazi owned it. In 1950, Ernest Bonifazi sold it, and he moved to North Attleboro, and there's a shoe repair shop in North Attleboro that his grandson runs. So Ernest moved over to North Attleboro, and he taught his trade to his grandson, and yeah. So, but anyway.
Would that have been Helen's sub shop?
Well, Helen's, there was a sub shop in there. Because I know Helen's was over on,
Helen was originally on the corner of Cottage Street.
well, then it would be in that spot.
There was a barber in there.
Okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's probably where Helen's was there, yeah.
Victor Pizzini's shoe store was in there.
That's right.
They started.
That's right. Well, in 1950, when Mr. Bonifazi moved to North Attleboro, he sold his business to Victor Pizzini, as one of his employees. Yep. And I was just talking to Victor yesterday. I went in to visit him because I wanted to see if he could come to the presentation. He had other arrangements. I'm sorry. So, but anyways, yeah, he told me that he was there first, but no sooner did he buy the business, he got drafted into the Korean War. And so he pretty much shut the business down until he got back from the war. Then he reopened it because he was strictly shoe repairing at that time. Yeah. And so, yeah. Then it became Pizzini Shoe Store. And then, as we say, in May of 1950, or in April, it was announced that Ernest Bonifazi sold his business to his employee, Victor Pizzini, but then he had to go to the Korean War. So, yeah. And then he moved into where Bouvier Furniture was. Bouvier Furniture eventually became Soxy DeCecco's furniture store. Yeah. But that's where Victor moved into. Now that building originally was a bakery back in the 1800s. big bakery. William Enegren owned that. Enegren families, they used to own the King Philip and rent them.
Yes.
You know, and so William Enegren had that place. Victor was telling me that he remembers, I think, a big oven in the back or something, because it was a bakery at the time. But anyways, yeah, so Victor moved to there. Then eventually he moved over to Main Street. I guess somebody wanted a pair of shoes really bad, so they couldn't wait. I don't know what happened there. Yeah. Anybody know who the police officers are? I'm not really sure. But, well, whatever happened there, nobody got, no, I don't think anybody got hurt. But, I don't know. And then during the 78 parade, as the guy was, the videographer was walking along, they got a nice picture of Victor. 1978. He was selling cotton candy at the time for the parade. Good old Victor. He's something else. Now I was there yesterday, and look at this, huh? How many? Fico, same thing. In fact, I was talking to somebody that I remember Dominic Fico. Yeah, he was sitting on that stool and everything, and he'd checking your shoes out, checking where the toe is and everything. And I remember those days too. Yeah, oh yeah. And then the one on the right, the shoe size and everything. I know it, huh? Yeah. And then a few years ago, I had a nice picture with Victor. Good guy. What a good guy he is. You know, he's even selling Trapezian chocolate from the monks up in Rentham. Yeah. I was going to buy a box. I forgot. I'll go in and get another box. Yeah. What a painter he is too. I mean, some of the paintings. Oh yeah. He's got one of their, well, St. John Paul. Real nice picture. Yeah.
Got a painting in the room of Peter Lavalette holding up the Stanley Cup.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, they got it hanging right in the room. Yeah,
Oh.
beautiful.
Huh.
Victor's talented.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. And wearing a necktie, huh? Old school. Yeah. The Opera House shoe store. Yeah, we talked about that. Now that's the Opera House right there, and that's the Opera House block, and you can see the Opera House shoe store. That's where it was. Now that building, the whole thing was completed in 1887 on the corner of East Central and Cottage Street. This picture was around late 1800s, and the Opera House shoe store was one of the first places to do business there. And the store was owned by a guy named James Burrell.
It's a beautiful looking building.
Yeah, I know it, huh? Now look at that. You can see the Opera House itself was in the second floor. You can see how tall it is. And the floor was level, apparently.
That looked like a high-end building.
Oh, it was. Well, they had a lot of, because the talkies, the silent movies were shown in there. They had plays, graduations. It was really the biggest auditorium for important functions in Franklin.
So that's Cottage Street right there?
Cottage Street, yep. This building is still here. When the fire happened, when the fire happened, it damaged the building. The third floor and the clock tower were gone, but they salvaged the bottom part, and that's still there to this day. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Are there any pictures of the inside in those?
No, I asked Mary Olson, I said, do you have any pictures of the inside of the Opera House? And I haven't seen any yet. I'd love to see it though. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, a little history on the Opera House, when it burnt down in February of 1928, and it was in the afternoon when there was a show being and there was a lot of kids in the audience. And Mrs. Costello, I forget her first name, but she was playing the piano. So when the fire started, they wanted to get everybody out in a very orderly fashion, so she started playing lively music, and everybody got out. One of the kids that was in there, his name was Woodrow Abbott. Woody Abbott. Yep, Woody Abbott. Yep, 59690. That was his license plate. So, and then the change at the Opera House, and so Mr. Burrell sold his business, and he sold it, and he accepted a new position in Cincinnati, Ohio. He sold it to A.E. Holbrook. I couldn't find what A.E. stood for. I couldn't find that anywhere. But A.E. Holbrook. James Reardon. In February of 1894, James Reardon took over a store in the Spear Block. That was the building today where the Sentinel building is today on East Central Street. That would be right next to the building we just talked about where the shoe store was. That's the Sentinel was there, John Rizzoli's market was there, a pharmacy was there. So that building is where this building is where that was, right? So James Reardon established a shoe store, a boot and shoe store in that building. And he had worked over the Opera House prior to that. And then he moved to the Metcalf block on Main Street into that spot. You can see, you can barely read his name on the sign. James J.A. Reardon. And then in March of 1912, he enlarged the store. A guy named Charles Fale had a grocery store next to it where it says Tea Company. And Charles Fale, I guess, had moved on. So he expanded the shoe business into there. And Fale Street is named for Charles Fale. This was 1895. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry, this is 1912. Yeah, because the tracks are in the ground. So it was after 1900. Yep. So, and then in July of 1920, Mr. Reardon moved his business over to this building. And you probably recognize that when Maison the Tailor took it over eventually. But Mr. Reardon moved his shoe business. You can see shoes and everything right there. That's where he moved there. And then Maison the Tailor moved in. Another Thayer, Alexander Thayer. He had custom boot and shoe maker and repairer. He was over on East Street. That's the only thing I found out about him. So there's one guy, one other one. Then there was an Albert Jordan. I know, there's quite a few though, huh? You'd be surprised. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is all before, you know. The arrow's pointing to the Spear Block where Mr. Jordan had his business in 1884. Well, guess what? That's probably where Mr. Reardon eventually took that over. It's the same building. Yeah. Boston Boot and Shoe Company. Grand opening. This was in January of 1889. Yeah, I know it, huh? Yeah. And that was in Fletcher's Block. That's where Vargin's Market was. Benjamin Franklin Savings Bank when they moved over to Main Street. So it was in that block. Some guy named Beauregard, a new boot and shoe store repairing shop opened on Central Square. That's the area in front of the Morse Opera House block. By L. Beauregard. Oh, and he sells tobacco and cigars too. E.M. Lewis, yet another one. That was over on Depot Street. You know, ladies and gents, misses and children's. Yeah.
Back then, we had a lot of industry though going with these straw.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then down by McDermott's there too.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, a lot of textiles, straw.
right.
Oh, absolutely.
I see a lot of people coming in and working.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we had the piano factory. For 1 year, we had a sugar beet factory. So, but a lot of textiles and things caught, yeah. Oh, yeah. Big industry in Franklin. Falcon D'Amico. Yep. Now, this is the building that was at 13 Cottage Street, where Falcon D'Amico had his shoe shop. It stood where the parking lot for today's Rome restaurant is. Now, recently, Jimmy Colacci told me they tore down that building. Apparently, it had a lot of water damage and they couldn't repair it. But that was there up until a couple of months ago, actually. And so that's kind of a rough idea. They made it a part of the parking lot now. But anyway, that's where Mr. Falcon started. And eventually that building was taken down and they put another building up in its place. So this advertisement right there is from 1915. Now, a lot of people refer to him as Mr. Falcon. And a lot of the advertisements would say D. Falcon. But what was his name? D'Amico Falcon? Or Falcon D'Amico? I never could figure that out. And everybody called him Mr. Falcon, so, yeah. But I went on Find a Grave. His gravestone down at St. Mary's Cemetery, on the front is D'Amico, on the back is Falcon. So Falcon D'Amico.
Kept it a mystery, huh?
It's etched in stone, so unless they got that wrong, I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So Falcon D'Amico. That's what I'm going with anyway. And then that's the building that he went into. And then the building just to the left of it is the one we just talked about. And then the Rome Restaurant parking lot is here. Yep. And Chapman's Garage. Yeah. Yep. And that building's still there too. They got the barber shop in there now. Yep. Yep. Merritt Shoe Company. That was 19 Main Street. That was on the corner where Newberry's was. And that was right on the corner of Depot Street in that building right there. And this ad appeared in 1926 in July, the Merritt Shoe Store. And then in 1928, they closed their doors and left Franklin. Yep. Mhm. Yep. Model Shoe Store. So the Model Shoe Store, this was in 1924. They announced the purchase of the Model Shoe Store by Miss Sarah Sullivan Mason, also known as Sadie Mason. That store did business in the A.J. Cataldo block over on East Central Street at 13 Clark Square. And that building had just been completed in 1925. Then eventually she moved, let's see. Oh, then she was closing out, and in July of 1931, or June of 1931, Sadie Mason sold her entire stock, and then she moved over to where Merritt Shoe Store was, that corner of Depot Street. And then the Shaner Shoe Store opened up in that spot. They took over. It says that it was formerly known as Sadie Mason's Model Shoe Store. So in February of 1934, the Shaner Shoe Store took over in that spot. But in 1939, they went out of business. But keep in mind, it's during the Depression, so it's probably not surprising that a lot of that happened. Scott Shoe Store. We talked about Charles Scott, and in February of 1938, it was announced that Scott Shoe Store would be opening in that building. And he was the proprietor. He used to work for Barney Kaplan. And there it is. A.J. Cataldo block, right. Yeah. Sea Fish Shoe Store. I asked Victor what was his first name, and he couldn't remember. I still can't find out what it was. Anybody know what C.H. Fish? Anybody know? No. This is when they were in the Metcalf block, and they were just moving over down the street. In fact, yeah. This is January of 1941. Then they moved down to where Helen's Fashions used to be and all that. And that was in October of 1941. And he moved to 48 Main Street. And Charlie Hooper's Thunderbird Cleaners was right here. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see the store coming here soon. Yeah. A B&C shoe. Anybody know what the B&C stood for? No, because this is 1967. This is from my home movies.
Billy Lord ran that for a while.
Billy Lord?
Yeah.
Billy Lord. Okay.
Him and Bobby Cardulo.
Oh, well, maybe that's what the C stood for.
Bobby Cardulo.
Bobby Cardulo. Okay, Bobby Cardulo. All right, good to know.
Billy Lord.
Huh. Yep. Yep. Yeah, that store at one time was the Sears Roebuck catalog store. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they moved down where Mammoth Mart was.
That's right. They moved down to where Mammoth Mart, right? Yeah.
Harry Martello ran that.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
My wife worked there.
And this is when Puritan Drugs was there, and of course Main Street Diner.
That Main Street, that was a staple.
Oh, I'll tell you, that was a great place. I love that place. Yeah. So, well, that brings this one to a conclusion.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.